Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 638. My opponent played e4 here, played c5. I was facing off against Goliath. He's a frequent opponent of mine and a pretty good player, although he's like me. Sometimes he just makes unaccountable blunders. But he did well in this game. Let's see, he played the early d4. That indicates that he's interested in playing the Smith-Morra gambit. And I take the pawn. I haven't completely accepted the gambit, but it makes sense to take the d-pawn with the c-pawn. And then when he plays c3, you can keep taking, and that's the main line here, or you can decline it. And there's different ways to decline it. I think you can also play d5, although it's not a big move in the database here. But the idea is you can attack this undefended pawn while there's a pawn on c3. You can attack the undefended e-pawn and force it to move forward, and so that's the point of knight f6. And if you see, at this point in the database, before I move, there's only 8 games. But after knight f6 and e5, which is pretty much forced, and then I play knight d5, and then there's suddenly 329 games in the database. And what's happened is we've transposed from the Smith-Morra gambit into the Alpine Sicilian, the c3 Sicilian. So that's one thing about the Smith-Morra, is that you can decline it and get to a reasonable position. Unlike other gambits, some gambits you have to accept, but the Smith-Morra you can profitably decline, or you can decline without getting a disadvantage. And so I always play that way in tournament chess. It's just too much. It's too hard to play against, basically against a equipped player with the white pieces who knows the gambit. There's too many lines to memorize, and there's too many ways to go wrong. Hard to discover all the possibilities in an over-the-board game. So let's see. He took right away, which is okay. You can also play knight f3 first. That's a little more popular, but eventually white takes this pawn. And let's see. I developed knight c6 and then played d6 second. I looked at this with the chess engine, and it appears it doesn't matter particularly what order you play those moves in. After knight f3, I played d6, and you see we're still in a main line of the Alpine Sicilian. He goes bishop to c4. Kicking my undefended knight, I drop back to b6. It's also an alternative to play e6 here and support it. Kind of a funny looking move because he can take and momentarily double your pawns, but this other pawn, the other d-pawn, is going to undouble pretty quickly, and he's giving up the bishop. So they don't take after you play e6, so that's a reasonable way to play. But knight b6, kicking the bishop, is also fine, and then bishop to b5 is the way it continues. And now the line continues d takes e5. I actually wasn't aware of this, so I wanted to check this out a little bit. If you take the pawn, because like I said, I play this in tournament games, so I want to make sure that I have the best outcome. Looks like this is an okay way to play. The reason I don't take is because it invites his knight to come in and take advantage of this pin. So I've just been playing e6 here. But anyway, yeah, let's go back to this variation. So after d takes e5, pawn takes would allow the queen trade, and I guess that's okay for black. So knight takes, way to keep up the pressure, bishop d7, and white can grab the bishop pair. So, so he takes the bishop, and then just develops knight c3, e6 now, and restraining the d-pawn. And what we've got is a situation where white has the isolated queen's pawn, but both sides get to castle, and white has the isolated queen's pawn and the bishop pair. So there's some dynamic possibilities for white here still. Bishop e7, queen to g4, and castles, and that's probably as far as I want to go in this line. I just want to get to the point where both sides have castled. So there is this early queen deployment, but the other pieces are not really configured to support a kingside attack at the moment. So white's going to have to take some time, and I can pile up the pressure on the isolated queen's pawn. So looks like a playable position for both sides, and that's the main line. So let's go back to the game. Let's see, I played e6 here. He castled. And then I went a6, kicking the bishop, and we're just out of the book at this point. Although this is white's a little better in this line than in the other line, but nothing terrible has gone on. This is still fine for black. he decides to take off my knight and develop his knight to c3, and I push on with the d5. And I think this is still okay as well, although it becomes difficult for me to play c5. I mean, that's my idea, is d5 followed by c5 to undermine the center and liberate my bishops. He goes rook e1, and if I want to play c5, it looks like I have to play it right here. c5, d takes c5, bishop takes c5, and I get my bishop developed in a single move, and it looks like that's the way to play this. I went bishop e7 here, and because I like to get castled before starting any action in the center, but sometimes you have to. And this looks like one of those cases, because he played bishop to e3, and now he's really clamped down on me playing c5. And already I feel a little bit uncomfortable in this position. I castled, he played b3 here. Yeah, I was not clear what the intent is, but he's controlling these squares, keep my knight from hopping in there, I guess. So I go bishop d7, finding another way to develop my bishop. And I'm going to bring the rook over and still try and push the c-pawn forward. But right here, it looks like my best plan is actually to give up on this whole idea of pushing the c-pawn forward and push forward with the a-pawn. That's what the chess engine is recommending here. And actually, this is a nice idea. The bishop has this diagonal to develop on, and that's not too bad. And this pawn can push on to a4 as well and maybe weaken these queenside pawns. So different ways to play. So bishop d7, not the most accurate move there. He goes rook c1. Now he's got kind of a nice position. He's got his rooks lined up on my weak pawns. And let's see, I play rook c8, trying to get c5 in. He goes knight to e2. And then I still didn't see a way. He's uncovered the rook and the bishop against the c-pawn. I couldn't figure out how to get that pawn push in. So I went with f6. But, well, this appears to be a blunder. So up until this point, even though maybe I was a little uncomfortable, it was still a playable position. But after f6, it goes downhill pretty rapidly. And let's see, his best reply here, yeah, once again, instead of f6, I could have continued with this a5 plan, a5, a4. Okay, but I did f6. And let's see, his best reply would be just to take it and then develop this knight and put some pressure on the center. And notice how, yeah, both his rooks are lined up against my backwards pawns here. So white's in great shape here. Let's see. He didn't take right away. He played queen d3. I played f5. So now I'm able to shut down this diagonal, and I'm not so worried about kingside attacks. So I'm surviving this position, but white's still better. Let's see. He goes bishop d2. And I finally think I can get in the move c5. And it was only after I played c5 that I realized, oh, he's got this annoying pin with bishop to a5. So probably once again, I still can't actually play c5. And the chess engine is saying I should play rook to b8 just to defend that knight in advance of the pin. Anyway, I played c5 here. And he played the pin right away. And let's see, I can continue with c4. I didn't particularly like this line because it leaves me with this isolated pawn here, but it doesn't lose a pawn. I thought during the game it would actually lose a pawn because he can take and exploit the pin. But if he takes, I can take back, and if he takes with the queen, I take his queen. He takes my queen, I take the bishop. I actually end up a piece up in that line because my knight is still here and his bishop is gone. So it's safe for me to push forward here. And let's see, he can drop his queen back. But in the long run, this is going to be a real weakness. So, and the engine is suggesting now I can play rook to b8, defending, and then white can continue attacking with d5 here. And looks like a tough position for black, but that's actually a best play. So it's the best I can do in this position. Anyway, I went with bishop b5, kicking his queen. Queen drops back to d1. And I play rook c6, defending the knight from the side. And I think for the moment I'm okay. He brings this knight into f4, putting a little pressure. And then I want to try and clear up some of the difficulty here, so I trade with c takes d4. Let's see, and that actually loses a piece. So if you didn't see the game, you might want to consider why does that lose a piece. That's your tactics quiz for this this video. If you want some time to think about it, pause the video here. Okay, well let's first examine that question. C takes d4, so he trades, and that is eliminating one of the defenders of the knight, and then he just takes the pawn with the queen, and he's attacking the pinned knight, and I have no way to defend it. He's just got two attackers, I only have one defender, and that knight is a lost piece. So here's my last chance to play c4, and after c4 I have maybe some kind of playable position, but well, white's still much better here. But anyway, after c takes d4, and he spots this sequence. He didn't let this opportunity go by. He takes, and queen takes are pretty natural moves. You might play them even without knowing that you're winning a piece, but you know, there's just no defense here, and I'm down a piece. Let's see, I played queen d7, giving up right away and trying to go for some activity. You know, I can push these pawns forward, kick his knights around, but nothing works. I mean, basically white's up a piece, and white didn't make any mistakes in this part of the game, so it was a series of futile attempts to complicate things, and at the end I just ran out of time trying to think of new ways to looking for any kind of trick in the position at all. But well, his knight is coming in, and I was never even able to round up this pawn here. So after this move, he played his knight into c6, and I just ran out of time looking for a move. But there is no good move here anyway. But it was an interesting game. Hope you guys liked this. I learned something about the opening that I play, so I was happy to do that analysis. And well, I'll see you guys later. Bye.